that case, we have a fixed protocol of testing to certify, because it's already established also not only by ICAR but also by ISO. In that case, the protocol is very clear. In other cases, we have the device that the protocol can be customized according to the type of device that we're going to test, but this device has to fulfill the criteria and limit that are described in the ICAR guideline. So it means that we have historical devices that are described in the ICAR guideline, like a milk analyzer, milk meter, animal ID, and whatever. And in that case, the manufacturer that apply for the certification have to fulfill that limit. The validation process is an extremely challenging and important process that we have established now, because on the market are appearing a lot of devices. The technology is running, and sometimes we had no time or the opportunity to describe the performance of this device in the ICAR guideline, simply because we had not enough data, we didn't collect enough information. So the validation process, in very simple words, is a testing that the ICAR is doing according consensus protocol, but is a testing that will provide the results, and these results have to be conform and have to fulfill what the manufacturer is describing in his statement, in his manual, and in his certificate. So the validation process is an important process, furthermore, because allows ICAR to collect data about the performance of different devices, but at the meantime is an advantage for the different manufacturers, because the same device will be submitted to the same protocol. So we have not the variable of different testing procedure. And this is extremely important, because if the testing procedure are not described, of course, the type of criteria, the type of calculation obtained can be different, and not always the results can be comparable over the time. So the validation process is a certification, is the certificate of validation is a statement that the manufacturer performance claim are fulfilled. Next slide, please. So here we have reported a very simple process about how it's happened. A manufacturer that would like to obtain the certificate of validation have to apply to the ICAR website. We have the form. If you don't find the form, you can contact ICAR Secretariat. And when we receive the application form, we discuss internally the type of expert, the best expert that we have to conduct this evaluation, this testing plan. And we assign the task to a specialized testing center. So we have different testing centers that are specialized for animal ID, testing center that are specialized for the milk analyzer testing, and this evening, we are going to present the ICAR testing center to validate the methane devices. A panel of experts is organized, and this panel of experts will apply the protocol. In this case, we have also guideline 20 that describe the process of the validation process. And after that, the testing center have conducted the study, provide the results to the expert panel that evaluate, the expert panel will evaluate these results and will recommend or not for the validation certificate. The decision of certification, the final decision is taken by the ICAR CEO, and we will granting the certificates, and also we will ask to have like a surveillance and auditing over the time of the device certified. Next slide, please. At the end of the process, if the result is positive and if the manufacturer claims are fulfilled, we will release a certificate of validation. We will release a fact sheet that is the summary of the testing report. But in some case, we have experienced that the manufacturer appreciates that also the full report is published. But this is upon request. So if the manufacturer wants, we can also publish the entire report. So this is what it was a very rapid overview of ICAR activity and how ICAR is involved with this new service. And I leave the floor to Yvette that will provide you all the necessary information. Thanks a lot, Yvette.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining. As Sylvia said, this is a new ICAR service that we are planning or that we are setting up at the moment. And well, today we talk about methane emissions, enteric methane emissions of ruminants, cows, but can also be sheep or goats even. However, we first focus on cattle because that's also where we have most experience with. And methane is created during the rumen digestion of a cow, and for 95% it's excreted through the mouth. So we are also looking for like breath sample devices to be tested here. Next slide. There are already several devices on the market or in the field that can record methane of individual cows. And well, in general, it's relatively difficult and most likely also costly. The two devices that you see here, like the respiration chamber and the SF6 method, they are known for having a continuously measurement of the breath or the methane excretion of the cow for a couple of days. So it's a 24 measurement for, let's say, 3 or 4, maybe 5 days maximum. Then we have also portable accumulation chambers, and that's where an animal, in this case sheep, but can also be, they're also developed now for beef cattle as well, where the animal is in the box for roughly 1 hour at a stretch. So it's 1 hour per day, and sometimes it is repeated and sometimes it's not. And then if we move on to the more like the spot samples, like the green feed or also the sniffer devices, they have multiple measurements per day for a couple of minutes, let's say between 5 and 10 or 15 minutes, but then a couple of times per day. And then lastly, we have like the laser methane detectors, which do require a human being to point the laser towards the nose of and the mouth of the cow. So there's quite a lot of human labor involved there as well. And lately, masks are coming up as well, which are put on the nose of the cow for a certain moment of time. All in all, it is a very developing field. A lot is happening in this field, and a lot will be happening in the coming years to come as well. And that is where, on the next slide, where within the Global Methane Genetics Initiative, which is a large worldwide initiative funded by the Bezos Earth Fund and the Global Methane Hub, we aimed to develop protocols for methane recording devices by establishing the quality standards for when you start to collect methane records. And we also set up the test facilities, both in the lab and also in the barn or on the farm. We started off with doing this for sniffer devices, because that is where we are most familiar with within the Netherlands. And if you click on then you can see the steps that we followed to get towards these or to come towards these protocols. And especially the step 2 to 5, the last 4 steps, that's where we really learned about how to set this up and learned our lessons. And that's also where, which is like the back, the origin or the starting point of this new ICAR service. And Lisa will explain a bit more about those steps in her slides. And I focus a little bit on the first step, and that's on the next slide. You can see, so what we did is that we approached manufacturers of commercially available sniffers. On this slide, there are already 8, but by now I think we have been in contact with more than 8 even. And there are several companies all over the world using different kind of sensors, different kind of ways to record methane. And on the next slide, you can see all the specifications that we collected of these sensors, of these devices. Sorry, like what type of sensor is used, what is the measured gas or maybe even gases, what is the range of the measurements, what is the response time according to the manufacturer standards at least, and the accuracy. But also we focus on like how is the data stored, and is there an interface or a dashboard that can be used to check on the devices. But also like what is the size and how heavy are they, and what is the IP value. And the IP value is of importance because we are working in a dairy barn, and there's a lot of dust going around. There's a lot of ammonia coming around. There's moisture around when things are cleaned. We have birds, and we also have we might have rodents there as well. So it's really important to have like the box really tight and have a good IP value. And then lastly, we also collected information about the price, how costly are they to purchase. And then on the next slide, you can see there's an ICAR wiki page, which is under the section 20 of methane emissions and genetic evaluation. And under there, you can find all the information that we have collated so far on commercially available sniffers, with all the specifications that are available given available by the manufacturer. So all that information is there as well. So that's what we did in step 1, and now I leave the floor to Lisa to explain more about the other steps.
Yeah, thank you. So now from the ICAR wiki page to the ICAR validation procedure for methane measuring devices. So basically the general setup for the validation of methane measuring devices consists of 2 steps. The first is a validation in the air quality lab of the Wageningen University and Research. And the second step is the on-farm validation on the Innovation and Research Center Dairy Campus, also here in the Netherlands. For the validation in the air quality lab, first, known concentrations of methane and CO2 will be offered to the devices, and second, they will be tested for the sensitivity to moisture and humidity. And in this first step, we will offer known concentrations of methane within a range of 100 ppm to 2000 ppm, as well as CO2, if applicable to that specific device, within a range of 1000 ppm to 10,000 ppm, and always starting with the lowest concentration, going to the highest concentration and back, to also capture the capability of the device to record sinking gas concentrations and to analyze the response time of the device. In the second step, we will test for sensitivity to moisture or humidity, and there a stable concentration of methane is offered, and during this, the moisture level of the gas will be increased, starting with dry gas and increasing in 5 steps up to 90–95% relative humidity. And yeah, this was basically, in short, the validation in the air quality lab. Now I would like to describe the on-farm validation on Dairy Campus, which is basically a research farm, but very close to usual production environment here in the Netherlands. So the barn in which the test will be conducted is equipped with a milking robot with several sniffer devices connected and with a green feed unit which measures the gas fluxes of methane and CO2. And the barn, which you can also see here on that picture, or the compartment of that barn has housing capacity for 60 cows. For testing of sniffers and handheld devices, we have slightly different procedures. So sniffers will be compared to the lung method, which I will explain in a minute, and to green feed measurements, while the handheld or similar devices will be compared to the green feed measurements as well as to sniffers installed at the milking robot. First I would like to introduce the procedure for sniffers. So 2 sniffers of a manufacturer will be installed for 3 months continuously at the milking robot. And once per month, the lung method will be applied to validate the output from the sniffers in that field test. And green feed measurements will be used from the same cow on the same day for comparison. Now, what's the lung method? The aim of the lung method is basically to provide the sniffers the same air sample, or for example, the sniffers the same air sample as which will be collected in bags to later analyze it in the air quality lab. So in the picture here in the middle, you can basically see, oh, sorry, that was too fast. 2 gas collection bins, this black ones here, which we bring into the barn and place them close to the measurement tube to which all the sniffers are connected, and attach them. And inside this gas collection bins, you see aluminium bag, which fills over time with the gas sample. And at the end of the day, these bags will be sent or brought to the air quality lab. So once a month at 3 different times during the day, this lung method will be performed in duplo, which basically means twice to be sure that the method is, or to prove that the method is well functioning. And the collected gas from this collected in this aluminium bags, which fill over around 2 hours, will be then sent to the air quality lab to be analyzed with the gas chromatograph, which could be seen as a gold standard for gas analysis in that sense. And the results of this lung method will be compared in the sense that the average gas measurements from the sniffer over the same time period will be compared to the results from the gas chromatograph from this sampled bags. Additional to this lung method, for sniffers, we will also calculate the correlation between the two sniffer devices and the correlation with the green feed measurements on the same cow on the same day. For sure, all the missing measurements will be documented, and the ranking of the animals from low to high emitters will be compared between the sniffers and the measurements and the green feed measurements. So that was the description for the sniffers. Now the one for the handheld devices and similar devices. So basically, the handheld devices will be tested on 3 days with a time-wise distance of approximately 1 month to also capture different environmental influences instead of just having it on 1 week. The barn in which the test will be conducted is basically the same as before. So it's equipped with a green feed unit and with a milking robot with several sniffer devices connected to the milking robot and measuring the gas concentrations of methane and CO2. And the testing procedure for the two handheld devices will be applied on approximately 50 cows, 4 times per cow, and for example, 30 seconds per measurement, depending on the user manual of the specific device. Both nose sides of the cow will be measured alternately, and the value to consider as measurement will be taken accordingly to the instruction of the manufacturer of the device. And for the handheld devices, we will calculate the correlations with the green feed and sniffer measurements on the same barn. We for sure will also document the missing measurements, and we will again calculate the ranking of the animals from low to high emitters to compare between the measures with the handheld device and the measures from the green feed, or the rankings according to the measures. So now the take-home message. So as you see, the validation of sniffer and other methane recording devices is now possible with ICAR and consists of 2 main steps. First, test in the air quality lab, and the second on-farm test. And as Silvia already mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation, now the manufacturer can already request validation for the device through the ICAR webpage. You can find the link here, and basically you find the form on the page for the validation. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to a hopefully nice discussion. We also prepared some questions, but I think we should start as usual with asking if something is unclear or if some questions are open after this presentation.
Lisa, we have received a first question from Mazen Bahadi. Can you read it? The green feed can capture the entire flux of breath coming from cows. Sniffer don't. What kind of comparison you envision doing between the two? And he had the sniffer measurement are greatly affected by ventilation and the farm layout. Are you planning doing measurement on multiple farms to test the correlation between sniffer and green feed? Can you see the chat?
Yeah, now I can see the
Okay,
chat.
so better that you can read it yourself, yeah.
So the first question was raised before Lisa came to her slides on what kind of results will we deliver. So what we will do is that we know that there are differences, of course, between what a green feed does and what a sniffer does, or any other device. And I mean, now we talk about sniffers as an example. And we also know that the green feed has, in that sense, kind of the it's like being a gold standard under commercial circumstances. So that's why we think it is important to have that one included in the comparisons as well. But we the cows will never be recorded at the same moment at the same time. But we will they can be compared on the same day, either with a correlation between the two measurements, but also with the ranking. So that's mostly where we will focus on as a result or deliverable. And then, well, for the second one, well, I can start, but Lisa can add if she wants. We are aware that like the environment is of influence of the measurement of the results or the measurements of the sniffers. That's also why we start in the lab, because in the lab that's all concentrated and controlled, so we know what kind of what the concentration of air is offered and what is then measured or recorded by the device. In the, like what Lisa explained, at the dairy campus, we have the Laval milk robot, which is known for having a quite closed feeding bin. Therefore, it's easier in that one to measure the good concentrations than, for instance, in a milk robot that has a more open feed bin. We will not run experiments or testing at several or different farms or multiple farms with multiple or different milking robots or environments. But we are aware that that it might be of impact, but by having the lab first, we already think we give a good indication, and then having one system for all of them makes them also comparable among each other.
So to summarize, you have added, so the challenging part, because as we know, the validation also requires some challenging step, because we have to consider the different condition. So you evaluated this challenging step more in the labs because are more comfortable, and in the field, you will see more about applicability, robustness, and operability, the real life operability of the device. Okay.
So, yeah.
You receive another question. Do you have any results of data correlation to share to compare test sniffer versus green feed and or respiration chamber? How do you compare?
This is a new service to be set up, right? So there are no results to be shared yet, and it also depends. Well, no. The short answer is no, we don't, and as it is a new service to be set up.
But for sure, you have the experience, at least, as you said, for example, the humidity or how to correlate, for example, it was really interesting to see the challenge that you do when you increase the humidity and after reverse, so to see if the answer of the device is the same, or also I think that you can consider it to define eventually in the validation also the max humidity that you have the best performance. So to reach something like that. I think that this validation exercise is useful also for the manufacturer to have some feedback that probably he didn't test in his lab. So it could be interesting just in case it's an hypothesis that you can say, okay, the comparability is good till 90% of humidity, but if you go up, so the sniffer is not working anymore well or something like that. So it's the challenging step. It's really interesting also for the manufacturer, I think.
Yes, and that is what we will test in the lab.
In the lab, exactly,
Yeah.
in the lab. Yeah. I don't see other question.
Roberto has a question.
It's about how we can measure methane emissions in the milking robot. And this is basically done by attaching a measurement tube in the feed bin. So this specific milking robot has an stable feed bin which does not move. So it's basically a kind of small tube going close to this feed bin, and with a bit of a pump behind it, we get the air samples to the sniffers.
So does that answer your question, Roberto? I think you can also unmute, or can't. I don't know, actually. Well, the question of from Riba on how do you recommend handling high burps versus low burps? I think that's I mean, it is an important question, and it is something we are dealing with research-wise. But for this surface, ICAR surface, I'm not really sure how you think this is of importance. So maybe you can unmute your microphone and explain where the question comes from.
So this question comes from when you measure with, sniffers, and if you're doing over several, minutes, you're going to be looking at the variability in, methane emission due to high burp versus low burp. So the question is, how do you basically take the measurements that is very variable, during high burp because of the microbial, emissions and production of methane versus where, mostly coming from lung through the, sort of indirect, uptake. So that causes huge variability in methane, concentrations, and it varies day to day, between animals or within the same animal. So how do you, recommend that for understanding or certification, validation that, this sniffer is doing the right thing? Are you comparing it with, the chambers, looking at the full, sort of amount? Again, it's not, direct. How do you handle it? What is your recommendation, going through this process?
Thank you for your explanation or further explanation. Well, the short answer, well, we will not compare it with respiration chambers. So we have our reference method, which is explained by Lisa, which is where we collect for a certain amount of time, roughly 2 hours, the same air that goes through the sniffer will also go in this bag filled with air, and that's then analyzed with a gas chromatography. What we will do is that we know exactly what time between the start and end time of this recording, and we will take exactly the same time of what's happened of when the sniffer was recording, and see if the average methane and or CO2 concentration in that bag filled with air is the same as what the sniffer recorded over the same time. So that's independent on whether there's a cow in there or not, whether there are multiple cows after each other in there or not. So that's the biggest comparison for our well, the biggest well, the biggest method for our reference method, as I say.
Okay, so in other words, it's average over, period of time, right?
Yeah.
So you're measuring that. So, having that in mind, which is great. And you said, 1 hour to 2 hours, you're measuring these going through the device.
Yeah, during the long method, it's for a period. Yeah, it's a period that it takes to fill the bag, and that's close to 2 hours.
Okay. And what is the error range for that kind of measurement if you take it, over several days, doing it 1 to 2 hours? From day to day, sort of error of measurement.
I don't think I can answer that question. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that
What
air will
I'm
be.
getting is really, methane is very variable. And, within the same animal, day to day, even for a
Yeah.
period of time, when you measure it with a spectroscopy versus sniffer, you're going to have that variability anyways, right? Low methane, high methane, mixed together for that period of time. And the bag, I don't know what is your amount of volume, you're measuring in the bag, but I assume it's
It's
1 to
10
2
liters.
liters. Okay, so 1 to 2 liter, and taking that measurement, how is it measured, into the bag to make sure that the air is mixed with breath, and it's not causing any issues there in air.
It is a validated method that we are using, and the reference is also in Lisa's presentation. And so the air that's in that bag is analyzed with the gas chromatography, which is considered to be a gold standard to determine an exact concentration of the air of a certain gas in that bag. So, I mean, I don't think I mean, that procedure doesn't change from day to day, and and we do it in Duplo. So we have the same air going to two bags. So we can also compare if the method works correctly and if there is accidentally not something going wrong. So that's why we have the two the Duplo in there.
Thank you. So one other question that I have as follow-up to that one, so if sniffers are measuring, let's say in the, level, right, when they come in and they're being milked, for 5 to 7 minutes, compared to 1 to 2 hours, how would this would be applicable to the field, to report, even though if they meet, those specifications, for, I would say, a period of time to compare it with gas chromatography, which is really, gold standard for measurements, right?
Well, what I think, Fabia, is I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding about using a sniffer for saying something about an individual animal, or testing a sniffer. What we are doing, what we are presenting here, like if the sniffer is if giving reliable results, and if it's giving reliable results for a period of 2 hours, which is a mixture, which will be a mixture of cows, but also of background. Then that also gives confidence that it will give reliable results for to be used for individual cows. So we are here not. I mean, today. I mean, I think it's an interesting discussion, but today we are not here to make this. Well, how does it work for individual cows over days and in different circumstances? They are very important research questions, but here it is. The question today is like, how can we validate and certify, and that ICAR can give the certification of validation that a sniffer is performing well, and that does require different steps and actions and activities, and then allocated it really to this and this animal.
Thank you.
in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yep.
We also have a question in the chat regarding the potential of sniffers when there is no feed involved, but I think that's going in the same direction, that it's yeah, in the question of how applicable are sniffers, but not about how accurate this sniffers. So I would say basically we cannot answer that question.
Well, sorry, Rafaela, but I'm not going to say anything about that. So
One question from Rafaela and a comment from Kees de Koning. Can we consider a green feed is our golden standard? What's your opinion? I think that you already partially replied.
it's not up to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a more, I mean, you are simply landing the new approach in the real situation. And so this is we have a lot of publication, with a lot of data. And so simply we are trying to land in this real field. And at the moment, as a golden standard, we consider the gas chromatography for the lab test and to air quality and so on. And all the traceability is maintained into the protocol they presented, the colleagues presented. But so, of course, the protocol could be that in 3 or 4 years will be implemented according to the technology that will be put on the market. And so this is, we have to start in any case. Otherwise, we could have 100 different validation protocol and different results, different situation. I think that is extremely important to fix some variable as they presented. So the lab test, it's really important. And also the field test is really important because provide information about the robustness of the system and so on. So you have different view.
I think that's a good question from Ash. Once a sniffer is validated in the robot, do you see that validation being relevant if the same device is used in a different piece of farm in a different piece of farm infrastructure, such as a water trough or somewhere else? I think it's a very relevant question, Ash. And I think the challenge with a different farm infrastructure is that how much of the air can you capture in that at that part of the farm. So if it's a very I mean, if it's in a water trough and the cow is with the nose under in the water, of course, and then looking up but not towards where the sensor is, then you will lose a lot of the air. So then the concentrations will be lower, and it is also known that some sensors do not measure as accurate in the low region as in the region where we generally measure our the breath of the cow. So I mean, for the device, we can say like, well, this works. This can be validated. Can have a certificate of validation. I think at another infrastructure place, and there are other challenges to capture enough of the breath at a high concentration.
So if I can just quickly jump in on that.
Yep.
Thank you very much for answering that, Yvette. You know, in some ways it all depends on the amount of time as well, because in the milking robot you're going to have that 5, 6, 7 minutes or whatever, so you're going to have that many of number of eructations. So, you know, my thinking on that is it's not black and white. There's many things that are transferable in terms of identifying the eructations and how you'd use that data. And obviously there's things that are noise or complications, like if the animal's head is in the trough, or if it's outside in a grazing situation and there's a lot of wind, or how contained. So I guess that goes on to how will this validation be viewed for using exactly the same sensor systems in a beef environment or in a non-milking robot environment? Oh, and that may be something that is stage 2 of the whole process or something like that, because we're all working this out as we go along.
Yeah. I think it's a good point, and it's something to be aware of, which we should not step over easily. No, I don't have the answer right now, but it is definitely something to take along.
Then we also have a question if we will report how often a device under test is failing, not working properly, for example, failing electronics. So for sure we will document like missing measurements. So, but in the sense that we do not have a measurement or have a measurement, but in terms of failing measurement, I'm not completely sure what you mean with that. If it's, for example, like an outlier measurement, this also depends on the software, since we are basically analyzing the output of the devices. But for sure, we are also documenting if we got all measurements we wanted to have.
Can you take the next question as well, Lisa?
Yeah, that's a question for the mathematical model. So yeah, in the end, we are not using super complicated mathematical models, since we are basically relying on or testing the output of the measure of the device. So this also depends on the manufacturer, which software the manufacturer applies to get like the output of the device. So basically we testing the end user's output with exception for the lung method. There we need to consider for a certain time period. So this might be raw data.
Yes.
So basically, we are not using any kind of cleaning software or something like this to clean background noises or so. That's up to the manufacturer. Maybe if there are no further questions, we might ask the next question we prepared.
Yeah.
Which is if the testing procedure we presented is applicable to your methane measuring device, in case you are a manufacturer of methane measuring device or working in such a company, or otherwise the devices you are familiar with. So we are really looking forward to hear from you, your opinion on that. You can also unmute yourself if you like to.
So there's a question about how long the validation certification will take and how much it will cost. I think what Lisa explained is that the recording in the barn or at the dairy campus in this case will be for 3 months. And then, of course, there's a bit of time needed for reporting afterwards. And maybe the process prior to before we can start, maybe then that Sylvia can explain a bit better how long it will take from the first entry of the application to the end.
And usually is you have to consider it that from when the applicant fill the form, the expert panel and have to review this application and to evaluate the type of protocol and so on. So I think that is usually is not more than 6 months, but as a first service in the starting service, I think that would like to add a buffer of 2 months additionally. Regarding the cost, we cannot say that. I mean, there is a fixed cost only for the application that cover the cost to study the application type of test to do. But after the testing plan, when it's ready, will be presented to the manufacturers. And in that frame, also we can better plan the time plan, because the manufacturer has to provide at least a couple of devices. And if it's possible in the 2 different batch production, I think that also the manufacturer has to challenge itself to sure that its production is standardized. And so really as initial service, and we cannot reply in a clear way, but in any case, after when we will do an offer, and the applicant is free to accept or not, of course. So it's not, and there is no obligation to go forward, but so it's an evaluation that have to be done step by step.
Arnold asked a question about when we do expect to have the first report ready to be presented. Well, that also depends on when the first application comes in. So that's and we are not running an application now because it's a new service that we are presenting today as a kickoff of having it available. So there's nothing there yet to be presented. So I'm not sure. I mean, I can see names, but I don't see affiliation. So I don't know how many people that are here today are working or are manufacturing a methane recording device. Can be sniffer, can be something else. But now that you've heard this, is this something of interest? Would it have an added value for you or not? That's the other side. So just curious to see if you feel free to share, then happy to hear about that. That's a silence, so then I give the word back to Sylvia.
So no other comments. So if you, I think that this, as you have been informed at the beginning of this meeting, the meeting has been recorded, and probably we will summarize also some of the questions with the reply that we gave, just a documented process. And tomorrow, 8 o'clock Central European time, we will repeat this webinar to respect other time zone and other colleagues in other time zone. So you will be notified because we have your email. So you will be notified when we will publish the recording of this meeting on our website. So if I don't see other question, I warmly thanks the Wageningen Center, Lisa and Yvette. Thanks a lot for opening this challenging era of this new device. They're extremely interesting. Everybody are speaking about methane nowadays. And also to protect our animal production sector, because we are aware that our farmers are doing our best to respect the environment and to provide a sustainable production. So objective data that can demonstrate this could be really great. Thank you very much to all the attendees. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Yvette.